All right, let's turn our attention then to rack mounts for a little bit. Let's talk about how we can put multiple servers together in a, well, more dense factor than the tower factor we just talked about. You're only going to fit a few of those tall, even if you have that 7 foot space, just because how large towers are.
All right, so this helps us get that safety factor.
So if you look here, we show you kind of two different views. On the left, we see a rack enclosure on the front side. Door opens up. There's your servers. You can pull them out. As you can see near the bottom there, that one server's already pulled out. Easy to work on. Replace components when they fail, things like that. You get status lights and indicators on the front of them. Simple, easy, and impressive to the big people who walk by the blinky lights and think, ooh, IT's doing their job. On the back side is where all the cables go. And again, as Brian was saying a few minutes ago, that's a pretty good looking rack. That's what a rack should look like. I've seen lots that don't, but that's what one should look like with cables properly tied together. And we'll talk more about cable management in a few minutes, but going to the appropriate switches and other distribution bits and pieces to access networking and storage and the other components that need to run in a rack.
And you can see the cable management arms there. And as John said, we'll talk more about how that comes together later. But the whole point is that on the back side, that's where your service access is going to be. So it gives us the ability to close both sides, and oftentimes these racks do have locks on them as well, which gives you the ability to put them in maybe a common area that you don't want everybody touching the little components. So lock the front door, lock the back door, and the only thing coming in or going out of that rack are big bulky cables. Usually those either come up out of the top or out of the bottom. So again, to mitigate some of the little finger poking that might be going on. A really important distinction, it's worth noting here, is that a rack mount server is not a tower unit that's laid on its side. Very big difference. In fact, you're not going to grab a tower server and just screw a bunch of rails onto it either. There's actually special cases that are built for the purpose of rack mounts, and we'll show how that actually works here in a little bit. But there is special hardware that goes into this.
You can. I've actually seen kits that convert towers into racks, but then you only fit a few servers in an entire rack. And so they get to be very not dense and very expensive to go set up. So while it's possible, and you may have a particular use case once in a while where you need a server, as Brian said earlier, special use case servers that you have to do that, you can do that. It's generally not what a rack is for.
Most of the servers, if you buy them and they are rack mount servers, they will ship with the specialty rails as well as cable management arms for the back of the unit. So it helps you get everything set up.
And the cable management arm serves two purposes, right? Number one, organizing your cables so it's pretty like you see there on the right. But number two, when you pull that server out, all the cables shouldn't pop out of the back. Right? So they have the ability to go ahead and allow you to pull it out without uncabling everything first and recabling when you're done. Again, helping with troubleshooting a lot when you need to go back and do maintenance on a server.
Now, something that's not shown on here is the sizes of the racks, and we'll spend a little more time talking about it in a moment, but racks come in different widths as well as heights. A common rack width is actually 19 inches. That's a normal size rack. And many of them are upwards of 30 inches all the way out to, say, 34 to 39 inches deep. It really depends on who makes the rack and what the rack was intended to be used for. Which brings us to the use cases. So rack mount servers are probably the most common form factor in existence. They're commonly used when we get into the wiring closets, but also single tenant as well as multi-tenant data centers. And by far it is the most common server that I install in the field.
Absolutely. And they're widely used, whether it's a small company or whether you're looking at Google or Facebook.